Hello there. Um, it's not particularly bright in here. I know that. Sorry about it. But anyways, so I kind of wanted to, um, I'll say tonight. That's not really quite that late yet. It is getting a bit. It's already actually getting quite a bit dark. Dang. But yeah, it's only like 6:10 p.m. right now, or 18 o'clock, 10 minutes, however you say that. um, But I kind of just wanted to talk a bit about some things that I've um, liked here um, uh, in Sydney, or what I've liked about Sydney. I liked about um, Australia, at least from what I've experienced now. I know that again. I do want to, you know, I do want to admit that, right. I know that Sydney's not necessarily representative of the entire country of Australia. And you know, so let's make that clear. I understand that, and there's probably also a lot of things that I've maybe not really fully experienced yet, but nonetheless, doing a say. Actually, I'm going to pull something up here. Let me just really want to make sure. Uh, got something right here. So give me a second. Um, Karen. Uh, okay. All right. So, as per um, being respectful here, I'd like to have an acknowledgement of country. This is the first one I've ever actually had in my videos. I kind of wish I'd started doing this earlier on in these videos here, but anyways, so I would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of this land, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. So that is acknowledgement of country there. There's a lot of different variations upon that, but that's what I had there. So I wanted to just pay my respects, and, acknowledge that, especially because again, I've had a class about, I have a history. One of my classes, sorry, one of my classes that I'm taking here is about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples of Australia. And so I just want to make sure that I include that and maybe try to maybe get in the habit of starting off my videos with that. Um, so, so some things that I've liked here um, about Australia. So, the first thing that comes to mind is let's try to decide what things I want to say first. um, One thing I want to say here is that I like the food quality. Um, I feel like that the food that I've had here, which again is not like a huge range of food that I know, but I feel like the stuff that I've had here, it's very nice. Nothing that's like blowing my mind away or everything, but like any super bold flavors. I don't really feel like I've experienced quite as much of that as maybe would have necessarily back home, but I do feel like the stuff here is comparatively a bit healthier, and nothing's really made me feel sick. I mean, I didn't really feel that way too much back home, but very, very, very good that I don't really feel sick because most of the stuff. Um, and I would also say I feel like, that it's also a little bit easier for me to, um, not always, but it's a little bit easier for me to feel full. Like I don't have to eat as much food as I maybe would back home to feel that way. Um, so it's nice, for sure. Um, yeah, I haven't really, excuse me, haven't really eaten my full dinner yet. I did get a little sandwich from the school stores there for a couple minutes on campus while I hung around there and just enjoyed the sunset and some music. Um, but so yeah, that's one thing. Um, two, what I'd like about Sydney, and I like about Australia is um, the um, the efforts to acknowledge and pay some respect to the original owners of the land. So again, Aboriginals and Torres Strait Islanders. I know it's not perfect. Of course, I know that there's still a lot of contention. There's a lot of progress to be made on that front. Um, but I feel like at least here, in comparison to America, where I'm from, that Australia is ahead on that front. Makes more effort to acknowledge um, acknowledge its colonial history and to um, at least try to bring more attention and discussion to um, the history of the country. So again, I know it's not perfect, and of course, there's probably varies a lot, perhaps by state. Again, I've only been here in New South Wales. I've really been in Sydney and some of the surrounding cities, so I really don't have necessarily a ton of experience. But again, remember this is just what I've experienced so far, what I've kind of gathered, which is pretty limited, but nonetheless, I really do like that. I think that, that I think that I think that's a very good thing. Um, and I appreciate that. Um, and then um, another thing that I like a lot about Sydney, about Australia, is that um, I feel like um, you can kind of it's easier to kind of take a break or to slow down a little bit or to um, kind of just be present. Um, Again, I know I've still had a little bit of things myself where I could probably do a little bit better about that, um, but in terms of like what I feel like I can do and what I see how people are, I feel like people here are a bit more immersed. They're a bit more um just they're just a bit more in tune with their environment a little bit more. I feel like um whether that be social or um the actual environment itself. I feel like I see that's a kind of another point here, but I feel like I see a lot more people out and about, like enjoying being outside, you know, than back home. And that's really, really nice. Of course, I've seen plenty of people walking, out and about when when I've, um, you know, when I, you know, back home, whether in college or, some of the cities or towns that I've visited. But it feels like people here actually they actually value a little bit more, um, presentness, and they actually have the opportunity to be able to do that, you know, and I think that's kind of also helped by the fact that even though it does seem like people work a lot here, um, that you know you kind of have a bit more time off, and that um, people aren't really aren't trying to constantly make you do tons and tons of things. Like, I feel like, one, even though I know I've had a little bit of anxiety about some like the big assignments that I've had here, like, besides reading some stuff for a class, taking some notes on it, most of the time there's really not really any homework or anything like that. That's, if you're not counting doing readings and taking notes, like, or working a little bit on a project every once in a while, something like that. Depending on, of course, it depends probably on your classes. So, I mean, again, that's maybe part of it, but um, you know, like I have a lot more free time here. I feel like than back home. I'm not really boggled down by nearly as many assignments. I feel like my time's a little bit more respected here. So that's one thing I really like because it's kind of a couple of different points, but you know, all very good things. Another thing I really like about Sydney, really like about Australia, is that people tend to be a bit more honest with you about how they actually feel and think about things, and people don't really overreact quite as much to it. Like, and I mean, I'm sure it happens. Of course, I'm probably sure it happens everywhere in the world, but I feel like I feel like it's much easier to just say what you think, and as long as you're not a jerk about it, like, and you're not, you're not a, racist asshole or something. But I feel like it's really not that hard to just express what you think and not really have to worry too much about, you know, trying to sugarcoat everything, you know. Um, so I really like that. I like being able to just express myself and not really get any particularly weird looks or anything from it. Doesn't mean I haven't had a couple couple surprise reactions for a few things here and there, but mostly much more positive or just like curious rather than a bit more like hmm, kind of looks. So, so that's one thing I really like. Additionally, I also really like um, just the amount of plants here in the city. Now again, there's probably some cities in the United States that have a lot more greenery and all that, but at least from where I've lived in Kentucky and visited in some other states around there, yes, you can find lots of really cool nature, but you don't really see it very much at all in the actual cities. If you're in like a small town or like out in the country, you can probably see some stuff, but it's not really anything particularly interesting. I feel like, but again, maybe that's just me because I'm used to North American, uh, you know, plants and whatnot, and so to me it just seems boring. Um, but yeah, I mean the plants here seem way cooler than back home, but I don't know, maybe an Australian might disagree. I think the North American ones are much cooler because maybe they're not, it's not as normal to them. But anyways, um, but I really like it, and it's nice to be able to kind of just see a bit more, um, a bit more stuff as I'm walking along. Just maybe just going to, you know, just going to the supermarket, or walking to campus, or one of my many walks somewhere else, and you can kind of just see not just little patches of grass here and there, but you can also see plenty of trees and bushes and vines and all kinds of other cool stuff. Um, so I really like that. Additionally, I kind of say kind of going along with, but not exactly the same thing. I also like that there's a bit more like variation, I suppose, of like some of the different like architecture and the building styles. I don't really know how to properly describe that or anything. I'm not like an architecture expert or whatever, but like I feel like there's a bit. I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe, and maybe it's not really necessarily the most fair comparison because again, like most areas that I've lived in are probably a bit not necessarily new, but they're not really like that old either. Um, but like Sydney's got a lot of history, and it's nice to be able to see different parts of the city and other cities around here, and kind of just get to see all the different places and all that, and kind of really be able to distinguish between them. Like for example, the CBD versus like where a lot of like over like a lot of I don't know what they're called, but like all of the like the 2 or 3 floor like complexes or something like that. Different spots, and I don't really know how to properly describe it, but it's definitely pretty interesting. It's really cool to see that. I feel like back home everything is kind of just all looks the same to me. Like nothing really stands out particularly much. And you know, I'm sure you can find some really cool, you know, houses that were probably like Victorian era or something, but um, it's kind of just all super spread out. And it's a bit trickier to actually find areas that have that kind of feeling. I don't know. I mean, again, maybe I'm completely wrong. There's perhaps parts of the United States, maybe Kentucky or other states around there that have that, and I just haven't seen it or experienced it yet. But um, I don't know. Another thing that I've liked while I've been here, not necessarily the biggest factor, but it is definitely pretty cool. Um, for the couple times that I have, it's really nice getting to actually be able to go see the ocean. And I haven't really done it like a ton of times while I've been here. Um, but it's really cool. I mean, again, Kentucky, home state, pretty landlocked. I mean, I've seen a couple of rivers, a couple lakes there, and they're okay, but like we don't really have any particularly super interesting, super interesting ones. I mean, you can get some nice pictures for sure, but I don't think it's uh, kind of just insignificant compared to what I feel like you can see here. Um, so I don't know. Um, Admittedly, part of this thing here is I kind of also just want to be biased towards Australia over or Sydney, New South Wales over my home state because there's a lot of things I don't really like about Kentucky. I really don't like its conservative um, nature and I don't know. I kind of just feel like it lacks a lot of um, I don't know. It's not a particularly I don't really know what the right word for it is, but whatever. I don't know. It just doesn't really feel entirely right to me. I mean, it does have some nice things, but it's just kind of a bit lackluster in my opinion. So sorry, 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 any um, people who think Kentucky's super great and all that. I mean, you have some nice stuff, but Nothing really particularly interesting. I feel like, you know, or super cool history. I feel like it's kind of just a boring state. Anyways, well, I'm sure there's probably more boring states, but I don't want to get into that whole discussion. Anyways, um, don't want to make it all too much about that. But anything else? Hmm. Well, I'd say I also just like I get to sleep more comparatively. Kind of goes back to the whole time thing, but I mean, I feel like my you know, like I go to bed probably pretty similar times to when I did, first year of college or uni, whatever. Um, last year, but right, like I probably get to sleep, at least an extra, you know, hour to 3 hours a day, pretty much, and whatnot. And so I feel a bit more, I feel a bit more rested. I don't feel quite as tired when I wake up, which is definitely a huge plus. Um, I didn't really think about that too much until now, but yeah, I mean, it is really nice being able to get that extra amount of sleep, and like they literally think that having like an 8 o'clock class is like early. I'm gonna take the fucking hat off. Which is funny because I feel like that's pretty standard, pretty standard time a lot of for a lot of classes to start in America, or at least in Kentucky, anyways. But anyhow, so yeah, I'm sure there's probably some other things I haven't said, but I don't want to drag this on for too much longer. But those are just some things that I've observed that I've liked about Sydney, about Australia, what I have experienced so far. I mean, again, maybe something that's about to change, or I don't know. Again, still so much of this country because it's absolutely fucking massive. Um, that I have not yet lived in, experienced, explored, whatever. Um, but yeah, those were just some things there. And if you enjoyed this, feel free to like the video, subscribe to my channel, and hit the notification bell. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.